Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And as the energy crisis in Europe deepens, and in particular in Germany, there are many commentators fearful that there may be uprisings or even revolutions. This could make the lockdown protests look like a walk in the park, with some officials saying it could see the end of left-wing governments across Europe, which would be no bad thing. They're claiming that it gives an incentive to what they call the extreme right, but in actual fact is really only the centrist parties. Alternative for Deutschland, for example, is a fairly just right of centre party, but is described as far right by Germany's left socialist elite. But the people have had enough, and the people are getting cold, and the people are getting hungry, and we all know what happens when people get cold and hungry and are upset with their leaders, especially in Germany. It's happened several times. It's happened even more in Italy. So I suspect there may be a winter of discontent. It would be nice to see it. Let's have a look at this article. Gas shortage riots to make lockdown protests look like a children's party, says official. Riots resulting from gas shortages would make anti-lockdown protests look like a children's birthday, one official has said. Gas shortages in Germany, brought about by a combination of long-term government mismanagement and Russia's war in Ukraine, are likely to prompt mass riots that will make previous anti-lockdown demos look like a children's birthday party, an official has claimed. Now, Germany, you've put all your eggs in one basket. You say, that nice Mr. Putin, he'll look after us. We'll just buy his gas. And then you close down your nuclear power stations and you close all your coal mines. What a really clever idea. But then, when you vote Greens into office, you're surrounded by really clever ideas. Oh, no, they're not clever ideas. They're that other thing, aren't they? Oh, that's right. Moronically stupid ideas. Because Greens are morons and stupid. They have policies that will destroy nations. Won't even save the planet because they're morons and they're stupid. The statement comes after a number of similar warnings from ministers in the country, many of whom fear that the political right would suddenly gain significant political and social capital due to people being unable to heat their homes, go to work, eat, look after their children. Come on, it's not just heating their homes here. A warning from the president of the Thuringian Office of the Protection of the Constitution. God, that's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? It's probably one word in Germany as well. During an interview with state-owned broadcaster ZDF on Wednesday, has crystallised the issue somewhat, with the official responsible for maintaining the security of the contemporary German state in the region, warning that mass violence was now looking likely. That is his way of gaslighting, putting state troops, shock troops, stormtroopers on the ground. Wouldn't be the first time Germany's done it. Won't be the last time. After all, they're only, 30 years away from having the Stasi. That was only 30 years ago. He went on to say, after the pandemic and the world events of the last few months, we're dealing with a highly emotional, aggressive, pessimistic mood amongst the population, whose trust in the state, its institutions and political actors is at least in some parts afflicted with massive doubts. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Look what you've done to the people. President Kramer is reported as telling the broadcaster, in this respect, we're likely to be confronted with mass protests and riots. He warned. He should have welcomed, surely, because it's mass protests and riots that get things done, that force change. Saying that what Germany had experienced so far in the corona pandemic in the form of violent clashes on social networks, but also on the streets and squares, was probably more of a children's birthday party compared with what was coming. Now, this is because when you lock people down for the first time, they're semi-willing because they think, it's possibly for the best and the state knows what it's doing. And then they realise that it's not for the best and the state has no idea whatever it's doing. And then it comes out that actually all these lockdowns and masks and all that did absolutely nothing. And so all trust in the state is eroded. And then times get hard. And money's tight. And you can't afford gas. And in fact, in Germany's case, you haven't got any. and you're cold and you're miserable and you've just been made unemployed and you can't heat your house and your children are hungry. What do? You protest. You demand change. You go on the streets, some with pitchforks, some with burning torches. You'll get a few with pitchforks and burning torches, but they're just greedy. And you march on your seat of government. And you demand change, and then it won't come. And then the government will put the troops out against you and people get hurt. So people complain and the government hurt them. That's basically the way it's going to fall. In particular, Kramer expressed concern of what he called right-wing extremists, i.e. anyone much further to the right than his extreme left philosophy, which his organisation even counts democratically elected party Alternative for Deutschland as being. And they say it will gain social and political sway during the coming hard winter, which he thinks will see many members of the middle class thrown into poverty. If the crisis scenarios described at the beginning of the energy crisis, supply crisis, economic crisis, worldwide famine with a subsequent migration crisis, and the possible expansion of the Ukraine war continue to escalate almost simultaneously, then we will have to deal with a high probability of a situation that threatens the existence of the larger parts, especially the stability of the anchoring middle classes in our society. What he's saying is, oh look, there's all these problems, none of it's our fault, and we're going to have a riot. Let me point out, everything he's mentioned is the fault of their government. He's talking energy crisis, the German government's fault. He's saying supply crisis, the German government's fault for tying its supply lines so closely to China and Russia. The economic crisis caused by high energy and tight supply lines. Worldwide famine. Well, with all the plans they have to reduce carbon this, reduce nitrogen that, Ireland being told to cut 25% of its farming, Holland being told to cut 30% of its farming, no wonder there's going to be a worldwide famine. You keep cutting farms, you keep destroying farmers, but it's all part of the plan, because if you can control the food supply, you can control the people. We're not stupid, we see what's happening. People of the countries involved, and I would say, well, every country really, people of every country need to vote out their current leadership. These globalists will have you eating bugs and living in your pods because that's what they want. And they will give you so many calories a day, just enough to keep you alive, not enough for you to get angry. And that way they control you. Why do you think they keep inventing problems? Nitrogen. They keep having, oh, we've got too much nitrogen. 78% of the atmosphere is nitrogen. But there's too much nitrogen. And so they say, must close the farms. It's got nothing to do with nitrogen. It's got nothing to do with that. It's closing the farms. Because if you've got a country that can feed itself, then it can feed itself. They can't control that. But when a country needs to import food, oh, they can control the importation of food. And therefore, they control the population. So Germany, you've brought this on yourself. You need to get rid of your government. And every country needs to get rid of their globalists. But that's an aside. We will have to assume that there will be legitimate protests from the population against the situation that threatens our existence in the fall, i.e. gas shortages, energy difficulties, supply problems, etc. But also growing poverty right through to the middle class. That legitimate protests against this situation, against political decisions, are undermined by extremists. Undermined by extremists. Now, he describes people as extreme if they disagree with his politics. It's his politics that have screwed the people. And he's saying, how dare opposition parties raise this? How dare we have an opposition to our one-party state? That's his problem. People of Germany, please rise up. Please overthrow this illegal cabal of globalists who are hell-bent on destroying you, because don't think that your energy policy came about by mistake. It was deliberate. It's control. Open your coal mines, chuck another couple of nuggets of coal on the fire, keep warm, build another 5 nuclear power stations, and if you get really cold, round up all the greens. You've done this in the past. Round up all the greens and put them somewhere that they can make a lot of heat. You know what I mean, Germany. You've done this in the past and you created a lot of heat in the past. But this time, don't go after people who follow a certain religion. Well, unless you count green policy as religion. But go after the Greens. This time, if you do that, the world will back you because you'll be saving us all. Anyway, I'll come up now. In about 18 months' time, the Germans will have a burning coal. They'll have re-established their nuclear power stations and they will be warm. Not this year. This year they'll freeze. Now, the wokey folk of Germany, because especially the young, and they're very left-wing, and they're all Greens and very virtuous, and that's fine in a time of plenty. But they're about to go through a time that isn't plenty. They're going to go through cold and hunger and unemployment and poverty. And all of a sudden, all that wokery and left-winginess will evaporate. And there'll be a shift. And the Greens will be vilified. And when they are burying the old who have frozen to death in Germany this year, and they'll point to the Greens and say, you did this. And there will be a social upheaval in Germany because since the fall of the wall 30 odd years ago, Germany has had it remarkably easy. We've had 30 good years of growth, of financial stability, of low interest rates, etc. So all these children grown up, they're in their 30s now, they've known nothing else but times of plenty. But that's changing. And all that softness that they've had for 30 years has warped and twisted them into the woke lot that we've got today. But as soon as times get hard, the woke's out the window, the green credentials are rubbish, and people will be hacking down trees to burn to keep warm, and digging up the coal and firing up the power stations. They won't care because Germany won't freeze. They'll freeze this year because they haven't got anything, no choice. But for next year, they won't freeze. And it's ironic, isn't it? The last time there was a lot of Germans freezing was Operation Barbarossa. They tried to get to Moscow. A lot of them froze then. Seems the Russians like freezing Germans. They're so good at it. Anyway, here's to change. If you like what you hear and see on the channel, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notifications of future outputs. Leave a like, leave a comment, and until next time, stay safe, stay well. Don't follow green thermal policies, and goodbye.